Morning. Welcome everyone. Let me just get my glasses cleaned up here so I can see what we're doing. If you're joining me today, you're here to watch me tie some springs, which is usually the part of the project that most people are scared to do. But I'm here to show you that it is not actually that scary to do. So if you're here joining me, welcome. My name is Kim. I teach upholstery and furniture restoration here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I teach my classes both virtually over Zoom and in person. It's a hybrid class, so you can attend any one of my classes from where you are, or you can come join me here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. On Tuesdays, I try to go live to show you some tutorials on whatever project I happen to be working on. And today, I happen to be working on this Baker sofa. Let me just give you a spin real quick. This I found for free on Facebook Marketplace. And I had my friend Lynn of Up and Up Upholstery, who was a student of mine before she started her business. It was in her town, which is significant. It's like a couple of hours away from me. She picked it up for me so I could pick it up from her, but it has the same shape as this couch behind me, which is something I've been working on with Lisa of Ramsey House Design. So we're kind of going with a vibe here, but they're not necessarily meant to go together, but they are, they can go together if they want. They would coordinate, I suppose. So this is what we're working on, and today we're going to tie these springs. And in order to tie springs, so worth noting, the jute on this particular sofa is steel webbing. It's not going anywhere. I don't have to replace it. I don't have to take it off. If you wanted, you could take it off and replace it with burlap webbing, but this is the most perfect sofa I've ever opened up in my whole entire life. It was upholstered so cleanly. I'm reusing all the materials, and it had horsehair in it before. Everything was clean. There was no dust. It was literally the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So I'm going to retie these springs. Now, you might strip down your furniture and find that you have regular burlap jute webbing or something similar holding them up, in which case you can remove that and replace it because you're going to want it to be tighter. This can't get any tighter than it is. It's got a steel frame underneath. It makes it a very heavy sofa. So I don't have to take the jute webbing out. All I did was remove all of the ties. And when I say I mean Lisa of Ramsey House Design, because she was here helping me with this. So I need to first show you what tools you're going to need to do this. And because the inside of this couch was a little dusty on the bottom, I use a pneumatic air compressor for a lot of my tools. So if you don't have a pneumatic air compressor, you're going to have to use a different method of cleaning out the inside of your frame. But for me, I use my air compressor with an air tool. I'll open this up and I'm going to blow all the dust off of the inside of those springs. You can also dust it off with a brush. Anything you need to do to get the dust off. If you're putting all new, brand new stuff in, you're going to want to get the dust off so it doesn't make your new stuff dirty. So we need that. We're going to need a stapler to attach the springs. This was attached with nails. We are actually going to tie it to the existing attachments in the back, and then we're going to staple it in the front. That's going to leave a lot smaller holes than nails, which means this piece will be able to be upholstered for years to come, because I'm not going to be cluttering up the frame with a bunch of bigger nails that are going to eventually leave bigger holes and split the frame. So I'm going to use my pneumatic stapler. Now, I prefer a pneumatic stapler because it's faster and it is less work on my hands to be able to staple it. You can use a hand stapler, but it is going to have a lot of impact on your hands. And this whole entire industry has a huge impact on your hands. So if you want to do this for as long as possible, you have to buy the right tools that take the impact off of your body. So for me, it's a pneumatic stapler. And also worth noting, it's a long nose stapler. This sofa in particular, I will not be able to do with a regular stapler because of how narrow the opening is in the back where all the material pokes through. So I'm going to need this long nose to give me a good distance away from the frame so I can staple it. A short nose won't work on this. This had nails, so they used upholstery tacks before, but everything comes through a very narrow frame. So I need the air tool, I need my stapler, I'm going to need some Italian spring twine. This is hemp, wax bonded hemp twine. This is a very strong twine meant to hold a lot of weight. you have to think about like how heavy the weight is that goes on these couches. It's not just the weight of the people themselves, which could be upwards of a couple hundred pounds. It's the weight of the impact of the person when they hit it, which is several hundred pounds. And there's several people who sit on this at one time. So you need a material that is going to hold up to that. Italian spring twine is the only thing that's going to work. You're not going to be able to go to Home Depot and buy twine and use that. The only piece I've ever had brought back to me was a piece that I did that way, that I had to retie the spring. So use the right materials for the job. So I have this 5-pound roll of Italian spring twine, and all of this stuff is available on my website too. So I'll use this to tie the springs. I'm going to need a pair of sharp scissors to cut the string. And then I'm also going to need a pair of staple removers and pliers, because you probably are going to make a mistake. You're going to need to be prepared to remove staple. You're not done removing staples after you strip it. You're going to want to keep these handy the whole time. So the first thing I want to do is clean out the inside of the frame and get all of the dust off before I start tying everything down. Everything else has been removed. The frame has been stripped completely clean. If you guys are on here and you're learning something and you're enjoying hanging out with me, all I ask while you're here is that you tap on that screen as violently as possible to show me that you like it, because then it pushes my content out through the For You page. And that's how people find me. And TikTok may be getting canceled in January. I have to start thinking about where I'm going to take, what platform I'm going to take this to. I'm entertaining all suggestions in the comments. I'm thinking YouTube. Facebook is also a contender. I get about the same amount of engagement across Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, so I could really get away with doing it anywhere, but I think it's time to start moving to longer form content on YouTube, so it might be the time to switch it there. So first, let's clean this out. I have a small air compressor, so this is going to use a lot of the air really fast, and then it's going to start to fill up, so you'll start to hear that make a lot of noise. If you're working from home and you get an air compressor, a larger air compressor is going to be better, because an air compressor can only run a finite amount of times before that motor goes. And if you use a small air compressor for tools that are recommended for a larger PSI, then your machine's going to be running a lot. And so my machine's not really intended for this. My larger machine is, my little one isn't, so you'll hear that go off. So I'm going to try and get this done as quickly as possible. And there's just like a little blanket of dust on the top of this seal. And I will start to lose pressure where it's not blowing dust anymore. Like that. So I'm starting to lose pressure now. It's not blowing the dust as vigorously. So I'm going to let that air compressor fill up, and then I'm going to go at the rest of it and clean that dust off. I'll get that a little bit closer so you guys can see that in more detail. But this is basically the stuff that's going to leave stickiness on your frame. But this is basically the stuff that's going to leave stickiness on your frame. But this is basically the stuff that's going to leave stickiness on your frame. But this is basically the stuff that's going to leave stickiness on your frame. You want to get the whole frame, not just that. You don't want any dust anywhere. And then additionally, you might want to go in and kind of wipe some stuff down, because you don't want anything here to pick up on your fabric. So I'm just dusting off the springs themselves. Now these will get covered with, I forgot I was in dim, sorry guys. These will get covered with a barrier fabric. So the material is never going to actually come in contact with these. But you do want to just make sure you're keeping your work clean, so you don't run into the issue that your dusty springs drag dirt all over your fabric. And I can see the dust. And I can see the dust. And I can see the dust sounding different. Sounding different. So the whole point of the system is to give the seat a little bit of suspension. So that when someone sits on it, it's kind of like cushy. It's not hard. It's not a flat piece of wood. It's going to absorb some of that like weight, and it's going to be more comfortable. That's what makes like couches comfortable. And you can see them in these coil springs, or sometimes you'll see them in sinuous springs. The back of this has sinuous springs. I have noticed that on the fronts of long sofas that have sinuous springs, they tend to be bent. They pull in because those springs are constantly pulling on the frame. So I prefer coil springs inside a sofa frame to sinuous springs. On the back here it's different. This is a smaller gauge sinuous spring, so it's not putting as much pressure on the frame, and I don't see, and it's also pretty heavy duty base right here, but I don't see that it has affected that in any way. But coil springs on the bottom. So the goal of this is to provide a suspension system to sit on, and the goal of tying them is to get these springs to not just stand straight up instead of tipping over, but to all be at the same height. And for this sofa, this has a removable cushion, so everything has to be nice and flat here for the most part. And when you first tie springs in, it creates a little bit of a dome shape. Now, if you were aiming for a dome shape, you are looking to get taller springs in your frame. I was told that your springs should be anywhere from like 2 to 3 inches above your frame. And I think if you're just doing a tight seat, a non-removable cushion, you would do taller than that so that you would get a nice dome on there. But I will say that like the taller they are, the more resistance they have, and the less likely they are to like hold under being tied. It becomes more difficult. So I have to show you how to tie these while holding these springs still and making them stand straight up and getting them to create all that shape at one time. I have carpal tunnel, so I find it very difficult to hold a spring while tying it. So I actually watched a video online of a gentleman doing this where he lays a grid down to tuck the springs under, and then he ties on that grid. That's what I'm going to show you guys how to do. That's going to take the impact off your body. It's going to make it go a lot faster, and it's going to make you feel better about tying it because it's going to make it that much easier to do. So what I'm going to show you here today first is how to lay out that grid. So I'm going to use this Italian spring twine. I'm going to set this on the floor, but you'll be able to see it from the top as I'm using it. And the first thing I want to do is lay out like a tic-tac-toe grid on the top of this sofa frame. This is what I'm going to use to tuck my springs under. So there's going to be lots of vertical lines and lots of horizontal lines that line up with the grid that exists already with the springs. And then after I get that on there, I'm going to tuck my springs under it. So in order to do that, I want my string to actually go tight across the top of the surface of the frame and ignoring the springs for now. I want that string to be flush with the top of the surface so that when I push the springs under, it's going to push up with some resistance. It's going to give me a slight dome, but not a super dome because I'm going to be making a flat surface, but it's going to hold everything under there so that when I go to tie it, everything holds still. So the first thing I need to do is lay out this grid. And I usually start doing the horizontals. And this is a big, long sofa. So you're gonna get to see me do that. I'm going to start some of these from the front where you can see it, and then I'm gonna move my camera to the back so you can see what's going on there. But essentially, I'm just going to try and capture every part of it so that you can see it. If you have any questions, I'd like you to put them in the comments because I'm gonna stop intermittently and answer those questions. And I'm gonna do that now, actually, before I get going. Let's see. I don't see anything towards the top. Rope is obviously old school and definitely does not hold them right. We always replace it. Yeah, I always, so your inner infrastructure of your upholstery is, or your outer infrastructure is only ever going to be as good as the inside infrastructure. So if your inside has not been touched in 50 plus years and you put brand new upholstery on top of it, whenever the inside fails, your brand new upholstery is going to fail. So it's instantly 50 years old when you put on it. So I always retie the springs. I like everything to feel brand new, but there are some cases when you put on it. So I always retie the springs. I like everything to feel brand new, but there are some cases when you put on it. So I always retie the springs. I like everything to feel brand new, but there are some cases when you put on it. So I always retie the springs. I like everything to feel it makes more sense to them. I'm not. Makes more sense to them. I'm not. And then I have. I think. And then I have. I think. To go to the back and attach it, and then from the front I'll be able to attach it from the front. So I'm going to start on this end with all of my vertical stripes, and I'm going to make sure that I run those through the center of the springs. Now, instead of like running them on top, because that would make this string longer and it would make it not hold them as tight, I want to run it flush with the top of the frame, but through the center of the spring. So I'm going to staple it to the back and to the front like this. But before I staple it down, I'm going to stretch it back and forth, and then I'm going to move it into the spring. This is going to make sure that it runs through the spring without riding higher on a spring up here or riding too low down there and making it looser, making the string longer. So I start with the frame, and then I'm going to move it into place. So you're going to see me going back and forth from back to front, attaching this to the frame in that way. As I get closer, you'll see a little bit easier how to do it. And then before we go too far, like when I'm about halfway done, I'm going to move this to the back of the frame so you can see how it attaches back there. So I usually leave this attached to the roll during this phase, so that way I'm cutting off any of the excess, and the excess is staying attached to the roll. You won't always be able to do that, but oh, I'm losing heaters. Oh, I think that was probably just a fuse. All right, so I'm going to take my hose. attach my stapler and line this first string up on the top of my frame, but through the center of my springs, nice and tight and flush with the top of my frame. So I'm starting over here, I'm pulling the string tight, and I'm kind of like moving it into the middle. And then I'm gonna attach it at the back. Now I'm attaching this, everywhere where I'm attaching this string is being attached to the top of the frame, not to the sides of the frame. I want to keep everything off the sides of the frame except for the fabric so that I don't build that up and you can see it lump up underneath the back panel. So I started with one staple, I'm going to put another staple in there, and then you can't see it from there, but you'll be able to see it from the front when I get there. I'm going to, instead of just having it stapled straight, I need it to be able to get caught in this staple over time. Like if I just stapled it straight, it's going to pull right through that staple over time. If I zigzag it when I staple it, it's going to hold it there much longer. So I'm just going to zig and zag, and then I'll be able to cut off that excess. Now I'm going to come around to the front and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull this tight through the center of my springs and staple this to the top. 2 staples straight. This is nice and tight. And then I'm going to zig, and then I'm going to zag, and then I'll be able to cut off the excess here. Now I'm going to do this all the way down in all these vertical lines all across every row of springs. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13 rows of springs. And this grid is going to resemble the grid that these springs are sitting on top of. So I'm going to start with the second one. And you can actually, if you get to the point where you're confident about like how much material, you can cut enough of them to fit all of them and save you some time. So I'm going to cut all these to length. They're a little bit longer than I need because I still have to be able to pull them tight, but I'm going to cut them all to length so that I can lay them out, and I'm going to attach them all to the back, and then I'm going to come through and I'm going to attach them all to the front. And I think that's going to save me a little bit of time. If you guys are just joining me, my name is Kim, and I teach upholstery and furniture restoration here in Ann Arbor, Michigan on the weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. You could join my classes in person, but you can also join them virtually over Zoom. They're live classes. You just bring your class or your project to class, and I walk you through the steps of restoring it, reupholstering it. We can do finishing, we can do upholstery, woodwork, you name it. I work out of my community maker space for the most part, but this year, for the first 3 months, we're actually going to be at House and Home, which is a great nonprofit organization here in the Ann Arbor area that serves the homeless community by providing them with everything a house needs to be a home when they're first getting into their new homes after previously being homeless. So we'll be doing a few months there and learning about their facility and everything that it is that they do. And I also offer some free classes there too. So you can come join me here on the weekends. I make my classes full day options because we do get a lot of people who join from out of state. So you can join the morning class, the afternoon class, the evening class. You can join for one of the days, you can join for a whole day. I will say the more consecutive classes you take to finish your project, the faster you finish your project. So it's a good opportunity to have that. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, oh, one more. That was so close. So I'm just going to lay these out now by the line that they're going to go in so that I can just like quickly access them as I get rid of the tile. This is going to make the process go a lot faster. It is falling through the frame though, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold it. Helicopters out here today. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to attach them all to the back. So I'm going to bring this back there so you can see how that is done. Now, I don't know how easy it is for you guys to see here, but this opening is very narrow. This piece of the wood is actually flush with the back of this. So this makes this a very difficult area to access, which means we're going to want to be very careful about how much material we pile through here because we're not going to be able to get a lot of it. So keep that in mind when you have an area that's narrow like this. We did think about cutting this back because this part's not attached to anything so that we could have more room. But this is a Baker furniture sofa and it could potentially be worth around $15,000. So we will be cutting into nothing on this sofa. We will be painting nothing on this sofa. We're going to be cleaning up the wood. We're not going to even be refinishing it because it's in good shape. We're just going to freshen it up, clean it up, restore it a little bit, and then everything is going to get put back on the way that we found it with a freshen it up, clean it up, restore it a little bit, and then everything is going to get put back on the way that we found it with a freshen it up, clean it up, restore it a little bit, and then everything is going to get put back on the way that we found it with a 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 feed. But I'm pretty much using the steel jute as my guide of where to lock this in. So here I'm just doing that zigzag staple to lock it in at the back, and this is, to be very clear, this part of it is my crutch. I'm developing a framework in which to tuck these under so that I don't have to hold them down while I tie them. It's going to hold it for me. It's a little bit extra work, but for me it makes the whole process much faster. You will see lots of different ways to tie springs if you look the videos up. The goal is to tie the springs so that they don't move back and forth and so that they're standing straight up and that they're all evenly spread out and evenly distributed so that they evenly distribute the weight across the frame when someone sits on it. If it's all clustered in one area of that sofa is going to feel empty and another area is going to be very uncomfortable. And I'm just moving my way down the line, attaching these in the back, and then we'll take this back to the front and we will start attaching it in the front. With a very tight squeeze. So, a couple staples to start, then bend it up. Then bend it down. Very tight squeeze. I can't get the string out of there. Then bend it down, and that's going to prevent it from pulling out. We've got just a few more. How far is this gonna let me? Okay. I'm gonna be out of view here in just a minute and I'll move that camera so you can see. Maybe I'll get closer to this so you can see how that staples in. We're at the halfway point. I'm going to get down even lower. All right, so now I think we're right here. This is the next one. And then we're just gonna work our way down this way. So we finished this one. Now we're working on this one. I think feeding it through here feels way easier. And you can kind of see where this was locked down before, where those nails were. And they even cut a little bit of this frame out so that they could access that area. And that's where that long nose is going to come in handy. So I put 2 staples in that way, 1 this way. Then I want to pull that rope back down. And staple it this way. Both ends of your string are going to look like that. Both ends of your string are going to get stapled down. Now this is my initial grid, and I'm going to be tying strings down this grid to other strings. And so there's going to be like a culmination of strings in these areas, and we just want to make sure that we don't build them up because we don't want to make it difficult to pull our material through there. So next row. Very narrow spot. See that little S I did? If you guys are joining me and you're learning anything today, all I ask is that you please, oh, we just did that one. Tap on the screen as much as you can while you're here. You don't even have to give gifts. Those are nice, but I get fractions of pennies. I think in 3 years, I've only ever made $10 off TikTok. But when you guys tap on the screen, it sends my content out through the For You page, not just here, but it does it on my feed on Facebook and Instagram too. And that's how people find me, and that's what drives business to my front door. So it does a lot of good for me if you guys are in here engaging with this content while I'm teaching you for free. If you have a project that you're working on that you want me to help with, I teach my classes 2 weekends a month, and you can sign up for those classes anytime. You can join them at any time. It's not curriculum based. You can just drop in whenever you're ready. Bring your project, and I will walk you through step by step how to finish it. And you're going to learn a lot, not just on your own project, but you're going to learn off of everybody else's project too. There are a lot of people working on unique skills on their very unique projects, and everybody is coming with something different. So it's a really good way to learn. You can even observe the classes for just $5 if you want to just watch and learn from everybody's projects. All right, we're almost done back here. We've got 2 more springs after this one. There we go. And we're going to spin around and we're going to tie it to the front. That's where you're going to kind of see how the string has to get pulled straight to the frame to make sure everything gets locked down tight. There is a trick to it. Okay, ready to go around. I'm just trying to see how tall you guys gotta be to see this. Let me flip this around too. Okay, so we are going to start with this end, and we're going to be pulling all those strings we just attached to the back forward and stapling them to the front. Now, if you remember, I said we want this to be tight across the frame, and we want to move it into the center of the springs. So we want that to keep it in a nice straight line. The goal will be when we're done to tuck these under that so that this is centered in that grid. Essentially, it should be lined up right with that steel jute strap underneath. So it's attached to the top of the frame in the back. I'm pulling it as tight as I can and moving it into the center of these springs. And I want to make sure it doesn't go over top of one of these springs or underneath one. I want it to be as flush straight across the top as I can possibly get it. So I'm just gonna do my zigzag staples here, a couple staples straight, one up and one down, and that's gonna hold that in place. I have a lot more strings that are gonna go on here to tie it. This is not the end of everything. This is just what we're gonna use to hold this whole infrastructure in place while we tie it. So on to the next one. Pull it straight first across from the top of the frame here to the top of the frame in the back, and we're going to go straight through the center. If it's not perfectly centered, it's fine. This is the crutch part. This is just holding them down. We're going to be able to tie everything into place once we go through. And so I got to do this for every row we just put in back there, and then we're going to do horizontally across the length of this. And it looks like this one. I also want to make sure that I keep this string away from the front edge of the wood, because if that builds up too closely, you might be able to see that. And when I go to staple the rest of my strings on, I want to make sure I don't staple on top of these. One, because it'll build up the material, but two, the staple becomes less effective when it's going through more material. I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to move the camera. Uh-oh. This string is not long enough. So that one's got to be redone. I hope that we don't run into that a lot. This string is also not long enough. No, not long enough. Double check, you guys. It's not long enough. Oh, geez. This one is, and this one is. Let me see. Okay. So let's redo those ones. I don't know what happened. I must have been trimming the bottoms of them as I was cutting it. String. This time I'm going to give myself extra. I'm going to replace 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I am going to save those strings because I'm probably going to be able to use them to tie the short end corners of the springs, at least 4 of them I'll get some use out of. So don't stress out about wasting materials because you'll still be able to use it. Always save it, because if you have a smaller project, like this is a lot of string, because it goes across the sofa. Okay. One for you. Now we do have to, thank you Vegas, take the string off of the back. So I'm going to move you guys to the back. All right. And this is where the staple remover comes in. I told you you weren't done yet. So now we're going to start pulling these. I'm hoping that I am going to be able to pull that out of there by twisting this, but it does not look like that is the case. So, plan B, we're going to just remove all these staples. So I like to go in and lift them. This is a hard wood, so it's a lot of the staples are going to break before they come out. So the slower you go, the least likely they are to break, and the faster it will be to do this part of the job. So try not to get at it too hard, because you don't want those to break. And you also want to make sure you clear all the staples out of here all the way so you don't break your hands when you're tucking material through later on. And then we're going to clear all the staples out of there so nobody gets hurt. Even when you're removing with pliers, try not to like pull with your hands, because that's going to put a lot of strain on your body, particularly your shoulders and your chest muscles and your elbows and your wrists. And you need those to do your job, so you gotta go easy on them. I find that this twisting motion is the easiest way to get those out. Last one. And now I'm so like freaked out. I just want to make sure that before I even tuck these, that they're going to be long enough. I mean, before I staple them. Which I like my stapler on the other side. But I just want to make sure that stretches out. Looks good. It's long enough. Alright, working our way back from here over fixing these 6 string placements because they were too short. And we're doing the zigzag staple technique. This one is coming from across, so I trust it. Halfway there. The way that this was put together was so beautiful. You guys should have seen it. Everything came through so cleanly. Nothing was bunched up. No wrinkles, not even through the back. Just like the cleanest work I've ever seen. Which I guess is who Bigger Furniture is. They make really, really high quality furniture. So I'm going to try and do it exactly as it was. When I took it apart. I'm using all of the same materials. Everything was like in perfect condition, but I'm adding more cotton batting. To the front. Okay. Now I'm going to go through, look at the questions real quick, guys, just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Are the strings pulled through an opening in 2 pieces of wood on the frame or just stapled on the top? It is pulled through an opening through those 2 pieces of wood. It's not stapled to the top here. It's stapled to the top of the frame that's this height in the back. So that's a good question. What else we got? Just going through and making sure. Absolutely love your content. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you so much. That's an incredibly kind thing to say. I appreciate it. If you guys are learning anything from me today, all I ask is that you tap on the screen as violently as possible so that you can send my content through the For You page. And I'm trying to decide where I'm going to pick this back up after TikTok is gone. You guys can let me know where you think it should be in the comments. My guess naturally would be YouTube. Although my content's not really curated for YouTube, we might just have to figure it out. I like to do these lives and then just post the raw live content back on YouTube. because it's just easier for me to manage my business like with the real people who engage with it. And then I put this content out there to find you so that you can come to me. I teach my classes here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and you can come do that on the weekends. We have a lot of people come from out of state, but we have a lot of locals too. I have weekend classes you can take where you can come stay the whole weekend. I have weekend retreats where you can come and everything is included. You can also attend all of my classes over Zoom. You don't have to like be in person to do it. So let me finish locking this down with the remaining few that are left. And now remember, we're just dragging this through. It's tight across, it's on the top of the frame in the back, the same place, the same height as here. So it's going to bring all the springs to the same height once we tuck it underneath here. So I'm just going to go back through here. I want that string to go through the middle of this line, and I'm really kind of lining it up with the jute webbing because that's what it's going to line up with when they're standing up. And I want this good on top of all of this things. Ran out of staples. No, I didn't. What happened? So I start just on top of the frame and I drag my way into the staples. Or into the springs. So that it lays flush. Ooh, there's some juice here. If I let it get caught under an extra spring or over top of an extra spring, it's going to make that string longer, which means it's going to hold it at a different height than the rest of the springs. So it won't be flush when we tie them together. Everything will be straight. I need to check my compressor. Because I am hitting every other one. When I'm done running these, I'm going to go back through and cut off the excess string. We don't want to build up any material. If you build up any material, it's going to make your work look messy. So you remove excess material as you go. See? Okay. This is where we come short, but can still make it work. Slide it in place. And that one is done. So now we can just go through and remove the excess string and do our horizontal stripes. What is your YouTube channel, please, and website? Those are all listed in the link in my bio. If you go to the link in my bio, you'll see links for YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, the classes. Anything you can think of is going to be in my bio. But if you search Lolco, it's a pretty unique name. You're going to find it anywhere you can find a business on a platform. Alright, so now I need to do the 3 horizontals, like 3 rows. 1, 2, 3. This way. String. We'll run those first. on my YouTube, it's just my live replays for the most part. But I think I will be starting to do shorts over there. Let me figure out how to start that from scratch and download all my old content. That sounds like a lot of fucking work. Thanks, U.S. government. Okay. One for each row. We're going to start it on this end and then go back on that end. And again, these are just flush across the frame. This is just going in that straight line with these springs, which these kind of like go up on a curve. So that we're going to have to like tie that into place when we do it. But it's going to go straight across this way. These are more of a straight line. Bring this all the way down. I'm going to go around back. I'm going to get untangled too. So I'm at the top of the frame on that side, and I'm just moving it in through the center of these springs to the top of the frame on this side till I get in the middle. Now it's going to curve. It looks like it's curving really well with that actually. So we'll be able to tie it into place on the curve, but for here we just need it tight across the frame. Perfect. And now we can do second and third one. Oh, they're not so good. That side. Oh, geez. All right. Let's run them to the other end. Trigger will pull if you pull it, even if you're not touching anything. This is going to go underneath. Over here. Straight across the surface and in line with the center of that second row. I'm going to do this one too. Great. Sorry guys, TikTok was making me do a puzzle. I didn't realize that till just now. Okay. Alright, so now we're going across the center. This is the one for this row. I'm a little caught up on this end. Let me get it untangled. I don't want these wrapped up in any of the springs. I want them free on the top of everything. So I'm going to find the opening so it's straight across the frame. I'm like not through the springs yet, and I'm going to move it into the springs. And this actually has to be through here. So here I'm straight across the frame, moving it into the center of the springs, and then I'll be able to tie all of those to that string as I tie my springs together. And that's going to create a nice symmetrical grid. This last one. We're caught up on this end again. it straight across the frame, move it into place. Cut off all the excess string. Flip this around. And I'm just going to go back through and see if there's any questions real quick. Someone asked about where my YouTube channel is. That's a link in my bio, but if you look up Loco anywhere, you'll see it. Hello, D&J Rustics and Angel and Ruth. Thank you so much for joining. So we are at the stage where we can now tuck these springs up underneath this grid. So this is the grid. This is what I call my crutch that we put down. This goes like across the top of the frame. It's running through the center of all these springs. Now all of these springs have to get tucked up underneath this grid so it can hold it in place. That's a little bit more difficult. Sometimes they appear to be tied up in a way that they can't do that, but I assure you they can. Now this is not like holding them super tight because this is like a long distance across. The more springs I get under, the tighter it's going to get. But it will hold the springs in place while you're tying them. And that's what I have the most difficult time doing, is holding the springs down in place. While I tie, because I have carpal tunnel. So we're going to do this to every single spring, and then we're going to start tying, and we're going to start tying strings to the strings that are already here, to the springs that are now underneath these strings. And the goal is to just make sure that these springs stay standing straight up and down. Not necessarily that this grid looks like it's perfectly centered in the middle, but that the springs themselves do not move and that they're standing straight up and down. If they're tilted a little bit when you tie them, they could just topple over time. Oh, geez. If your springs are having a difficult time staying under, like if they just keep popping out, it could be that there's just too much resistance, that they're too tall to tie in that way. In which case you have to tie them without this crutch method. And there are lots of videos for that. I've never ran into the case that I couldn't do this. You could just need a shorter spring, but whatever spring came with your furniture is probably the spring it's supposed to be with. So keep that in mind, unless someone did it wrong, which is also true sometimes. So now I'm going back through and I'm doing this. You'll see this string doesn't necessarily line up in the middle of everything, but I'll be able to pull it back into place when I go to tie it. That's going to hold everything there. This is going to build a web on top of your spring so that when your material sits on top of it, it's going to spread out evenly, and the weight will be evenly distributed across the surface. You do not want to get your hands caught between the string and the spring. That is painful, especially if it's super duper tight. The more we get under here, the easier it gets to hold them under. Some of these might slip out prematurely before we're ready to tie them. And that's just because there's so much distance between the ends of this couch. This one. Last row, and then we get to the fun part, which is tying the actual springs. Did you fix the sewing machine? I did not. I'm gonna take that in. I gave up. I just started working on I worked on it at the makerspace that I'm a member of. Wish I could stay and watch the whole process because I have an antique set to reupholster now. Well, Angel, if you can't stay to watch the whole process, I will be putting the whole process unedited over on YouTube, so you can watch it there later. Is it okay to replace with foam instead of springs and put the no-sag springs on the bottom? Yes, but what I will tell you with the no-sag springs, the sinuous springs, that's what is up here. I do notice that on the fronts of these sofas, if you use it, it's constantly pulling them, like with a lot of pressure, so they tend to like make the fronts of the sofas cave in and it can break the frame. I wouldn't use sinuous springs, but you could just put jute webbing across the top and put foam on top of that. You don't have to learn how to tie these springs. But I promise this is not hard. 100% of my students get it right 100% of the time. People who have never even laid hands on a sewing needle before in their lives, I taught how to do this. And they do great every time. If you know how to weave over, under, then you know how to tie springs. It's super duper easy, I promise. Let's hurry up and get these steps so we can get to showing you how easy it is. All right, we're almost. All right. We're almost there. We just got a few more springs left here on the end, and you can already see, like, it's already holding the springs still. And I'll show you, it's already got a slight dome on it, so it's like nice and rounded. We're going to put some edge roll on it, which is going to take the dome off of it and make it just flat, because this is going to have a removable cushion on top. Put some edge roll on it, which is going to take the dome off of it and make it just flat, because this is going to have a removable cushion on top. Although I desperately want it to not be removable. But I have all this beautiful down feathers that it came with that I think it just needs to be the same. It needs to be exactly the same as it was, except for different color fabric. I am putting a rust fabric on it this time, but I will be using it. Have little pom-poms for buttons, and I will be making those too. So look at this. We've got everything tucked. This spring is the only one that doesn't want to stay put, but that's okay. We're going to tie it into place. I'm going to show you now how it looks, how the profile looks. Flip. Okay, so now you can see the profile of the seat is like nice and rounded at the top. All those springs are at the same height. You can see this spring is a little crooked. We're going to be able to tie that into place, but everything is the same height across the top, and that's what we want, because we want that to look nice and flat. You might not like know it, but you can like see when it's uneven, and a lot of people don't notice that much detail, but I started to notice it if I had it in my own work, so I started to work on improving it. So now we're going to start tying, and for this we're going to be tying individual strings first vertically and then horizontally across the surface, tying the strings to these strings and the springs at the same time, and making sure that the springs get like held up. We're going to do that vertically, and then we're going to go horizontally, and then we're going to go diagonally in this direction, and then we're going to go diagonally in this direction, and that's going to give us an 8-way tie. That is a lot of tying. It is a lot of work, but it is absolutely necessary work. So let's get the strings ready for this. We have 13 here. This has to be long enough to staple in the back, and then I give myself a full arm's length down the front to make it so that it will tie around every intersection of string and spring. That's what we need it to do. So you're gonna go heavy on the string, and you'll start to get a feel for how much you need the more experience you get with this. So typically I do an arm's width. When you have a lot of springs, it's different. Like when we do the length here, I'll probably just run that one string at a time so that I don't waste any string, because I'm gonna need more than an arm's width. 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, one more, 13. I'm going to do the same thing we did before and just kind of place these strings on top so that they're in place. I'm not going to be stapling them to this top wood. That's part of the top of the back of the chair. And if I tie stuff there, I'm not going to be able to upholster the back. This has to go on the frame, but in the back, which is underneath this, in the back. There's not a ton of space between it either, which makes it difficult for the upholsterer, but it is going to look super duper clean. I'm pretty stoked for that. Once I get these in place, we're going to staple them all down in the back. And then we're going to come to the front and we're going to tie them and then staple them in the front. It's best that when you're doing something this big, you kind of get everything in place that's going to allow you to speed through every single step and batch your processes. Let's move back. We move to the back, but we go to staple back there. One short again. So now let's move to the back and start locking them into place. These are getting attached the same way that we did the bottom part of the string. We're just going to staple it to the top of the back of the frame, which is like not this piece, it's down here on this bottom piece. So you got to run everything through. Zigzag staples on the top, just a couple staples down, zig it back, zag it forward, and I'm putting these strings right next to the string that I already had. I'm now putting them on top of it. If you put it on top, you're going to have a difficult time seeing it. And the staple is not gonna be as effective. Because it has to go through too much material. And I am using 1/2-inch staple for this too. You won't always need a 1/2-inch staple, particularly if you're stapling through material that is not thick enough to handle a 1/2-inch staple. Like the wood, you don't want the staple to blow out the wood, but this is going down into a very big piece of hardwood. I'm gonna get a pre-bent. Easier to staple both sides. If you ever wonder if you could do a couch is just a wide chair. If you think you could give a chair a go, you might as well start with a couch. It's not that much different. Just more material that you're working with. Let's check the time too while we're at it. Make sure we're doing okay on time. 12:17, 27%. Right. Let's try to move fast. Few left here. Now, I think we'll probably get all the horizontals and verticals done today. Hopefully we'll get the diagonals started so you guys get a general idea. That is going to be tight squeezed for fabric. So all I'm doing is running these lines down the lines I already put down so I can tie these strings to the existing strings and to the springs at the same time, which is going to anchor it to that grid. Two more after this one. Last one, and then we'll move to the other side and start tying, because everything is in place. Okay. Back to the front. And then I'll take a moment to look at questions if you guys have any. Going through the comments, guys. Just give me a second. All right. What type of staple gun are you using? I'm using, no, I've never heard anyone else say this out loud, so I don't really know how to say it. But it's either a BIA or a BA or a B. I'm not 100% sure. This is a $400 stapler, but you can get these for under $100. It's a 22 gauge, I think it's a half-inch crown. Well, it says so right here. Let's see. No, maybe not on this one. A lot of staplers will have the staple information printed right on it. This one does not, but 22 gauge stapler, basically. And you can get those, like I have a cheap version too, I don't have it here, but I have a cheap one that's under $100 that you can get on Amazon if you're just getting started. And you can get used air compressors on Marketplace for pretty cheap. I do suggest getting a pneumatic stapler because you can adjust the pressure, and you can't adjust the pressure on an electric stapler, and a manual stapler is just too hard on your hands. So now we've got to tie this string to this string and these springs. And we're going to tie this at every intersection of string and spring. So right here, there's string and spring. Right here, there's string and string. We're going to tie it there. Here, there's string and spring. Here, 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 like at the ends of the springs and at the centers. We're going to do this all vertically, and then we're going to go horizontally, and then we're going to go diagonally in one direction, and then we're going to go diagonally in the other direction, and that's going to give us an 8-way tie. This is the first part of the 4-way tie that we're going to do right now. So this is a mantra that you can learn that is going to help you do this right every single time you do it. So if you can weave like placemats in kindergarten, you can do this. So everything is underneath this like grid of springs now. So I'm going to start my tie actually going under the spring. Whenever I start at a spring, I'm always going under the spring. And then I'm sort of going in a box. I'm going down, right, up, left, down. That's the direction I'm tying in, which is also, you could think of it as a spiral. I'm going in a loop like in this direction. I start going under the spring, and then I go over the string, and then I come back under the spring, and then I go over the string, and then I come back under the spring until I'm going back in this direction. So again, we went down, over, back, over, down. And you'll see that that has put like a loop on the top of this string and on this side, and the top of the string on this side, but it also puts a loop on the bottom of the spring on either side, which is pulling that spring up to the string and holding it still. It's making sure it's holding it really tight. Now, other upholsterers will go the extra mile to actually go through, tuck this string underneath this loop and pull it and tie it. I have a difficult time with my carpal tunnel keeping this string tight when I do it. And this is where the grid comes in handy again, because we're tying this to a grid and not just to the spring, it's a more secure latch. So it's going to hold on to it just as tight this way without looping it through as it would if you had to loop it through. When you're looping it through without the grid, you don't have this like added insurance that it's not gonna come undone. It's not looping around anything at the top here. So this is actually going to make the process faster, and it's going to make it super secure. So remember, the goal is to tie the springs so that they hold still and so that they don't tip from side to side. We want them to be, the core of them to be straight up and down. So I've done this first one. Now I'm coming to the strings, and my strings are made so that my my horizontal string is on top of my vertical string. So because that's starting on top, I'm going to start off going over the string. If that started off on the bottom, I would start off going under the string. So here I'm going over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, and over the string until I'm back in this direction. And I'm holding this string tight the whole time, like between this tie and this tie, that's being held pretty tight. So now I'm just going to make sure my spring is in the right place. And because this opening is so close to the string, I'm going to include both of these springs here. And again, I'm going to start under the spring. When it's with the spring, it's always under the spring. Over the string, under the spring, over the string, and under the string and back in this direction. That spring now is not going anywhere. You can't move it anywhere. So now I'm moving up to this spring. I want to get it put in place. I'm going to start off going under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction. And now I'm coming to the middle. And because my string is on top, I'm going to start going over it and then under it. If I did it backwards, if I started going under the string and then over the string, it would untie right there automatically. So you'll know if you got it wrong right away. So I'm going over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, and over the string and back in this direction. Get this pulled into place. And here on the end, I'm going under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction. Moving this final one into place. And I have an opening right there too, so I'm going to include both of those rungs of the spring. Under the spring, and I'm holding this in place. If I didn't have the grid, this would be, I'd be holding it like this. It'd be much more difficult, but right now I can just hold this in place. Under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the string, spring, back in this direction. Then over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string, back in this direction. And the last bit, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction, and I'm going to staple it to the top of the frame right next to the string that was already there. Cut off my excess. And now I'm ready to do the next one. What do you guys think so far? Are we tracking? Is it confusing? All right, I don't see any questions. We're going to keep it moving. I'm going to actually hover over top of this more so you guys can see a more aerial view. And we're starting with this one now. And all of these are loosey-goosey. These are tied. These are not moving, but these are still loosey-goosey. So we're going to need to start tying them down. Here we're going to start under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction. In the middle where I have these crossed and the string is on top, I'm going to start over the string and I'm pulling this to the middle of the spring so that it'll hold that there evenly. Over the string, under the string, and I'm trying to do this in as little hand motions as I can so I can keep it tight in the back. Over the string, under the string, over the string. And then this is going to go under the spring. Remember, it goes in a box. Down, over, up, over, down. Under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, and it holds this loop, and this loop is holding this string to this spring on top and on the bottom. See this loop around the spring and this loop around the spring? It's pulling those two things together, and that's what's holding it tight so that it can't move. So we're going to go under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring. And as soon as you get the rhythm down, you'll start to notice that you can do this like fairly quickly. Over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring. And then I want to move this down into place, make sure my spring is standing straight up. It looks like it's up a little too far here. Okay, good. Over the string, under the string, pulling that string into the middle where I want it. Under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string, and back to the front of the frame. Now I've got two very sturdy rows of springs. On to the next one. Get it, the spring moved in place. We're going under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, and back in this direction. Get the spring tightened and straightened where I want it, and I'm going to go over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string, back in this direction. Get this guy out of my way. This is close enough to an opening that I'm going to do both of these rungs of the spring. Go under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, and back under the spring, back in this direction. Make sure this guy is where I want it. Moving into this guy, I'm going to be moving that string down so I can center it. I'm going under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction. How's everything going there? If you guys are learning anything, show me with the legs, because that's how my content gets pushed out to people, and that's how they find my classes, and that's how they learn I teach upholstery for a living. So I'm moving this string back down. We're going over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string, and back in this direction. And then we're making sure that this row stays in line, this row is staying in line. Under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, under, over, under, over, under. Coming up to the front here, pulling the string into place, over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string. Now the goal isn't to make it a pretty little grid, but if you can make it a pretty little grid, you're gonna love it. It'll make you very happy. I'm nervous that I lost connection, so I'm moving you guys down real quick just so I can see you. Oh yeah, we're still there. All right, let's see if we can get this next one right on top. Okay. So you can see this is where the string starts to not line up a little bit. This is, we can edit this all as we go. So here we're going under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, and back under the spring, and then get this guy moved into place so that it is an even part of our grid and it's standing straight up and down. For the center, we're going over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string. For the outside end, we're going under the spring. I'm catching them both here because of how close it is. Over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction. Under the spring, over the string, let me get that tightened up, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction. I'm going to get this string lined up in the center. I'm even moving the spring a little bit to the center because it's starting to lean left. And I'm going to start over that string and I'm holding it tight. under the string, over the string, under the string. By the time I'm in this direction, it's holding it nice and tight. Here, we're gonna go under, over, under. I'm gonna catch it over on this second one because it was a little short. And then this front one, move that back into place. Under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring. Pull the spring into place. Looks like it's a little far. There we go. Pull the string to the center and go over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string. Back in this direction. Now you will expect the springs at the front and the back the tops will lean towards the top and the back. And that's because they're being pulled down to the side. But the core of them should stand straight up. You don't want the core to be leaning. Through the first third, we're on to the second third of the sofa seat. Just the verticals, by the way. We still have to do this horizontally, and then we have to do it diagonally. So there is a lot of steps. It is easy, but it's pretty tedious. It does take a long time. I find it very satisfying, and once you get into like a rhythm, you can do it pretty quickly. So, over, under, over, under, over. Is that guy in the right direction? My nose is itchy. It's a little cold out here. Under the spring. Over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction. Over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string. Back this way, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring. See how it's tied to it? It's holding it to it, which is why it's holding it still. And it's just a bit faster than that like loop tie method, but every bit is effective. It uses a little bit more string, but it's easier on the hands, which means you can do this a lot longer, and it's going to save you money if you can do it faster. Over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string. Let's pull this in place. Let's get this guy standing up before we tie the last one in place. And I'm going under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction. Then I'm just going to do my zigzag staple right next to the string. I'm not overlapping these because I don't want to lose integrity of the staple. And I don't want to build up too much material in one area and you'll be able to see it. And it will not be cute. Okay, we are getting there. Ugh, my nose is getting itchy and runny. Okay, on to the next. Let's see how fast I can do this. Let's see if I stop talking about it, if I can do it much faster. People always say make it look so easy, but it's only easy with practice. I had a gentleman that was very good at tying knots show me a fast way to do it, but he was better at that than me. Nice. We're getting there. You can start to see everything coming together, standing straight up, getting bouncy. The idea is like when you sit on it, all the surrounding springs should go down at the same time too. You can affect the integrity of the frame by not putting them on properly, because if the weight's not distributed evenly, it can put stress on the frame. Left-handed is hard. Hold on, let me swap. Zig, zag. Moving this one into place. This one is a little feral. It's trying to tip pretty hard, so I'm going under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the string, in this direction, over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string, in this direction, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring. See how everything is like standing up? Looks so nice. Under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction, and I'm like loosening and tightening according to like where I want to move it. Over the string, under the string. Uh-oh, split open a cut. Over the string, under the string, back in this direction. I have to put some tape on my finger in a second. Under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction. You can't do it one-handed. Under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, and let's move it into place this way. Over the string, under the string, over the string, under the string, over the string, and then last one, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction, spring, over the string, under the spring, over the string, under the spring, back in this direction. Notice I kept that string tight the whole time. Oh my goodness. Keep band-aids on hand, folks. I gotta get some tape. Cut myself with a knife the other day and it keeps splitting back open. It's in a very bleedy spot. Okay. Again, very quickly through, keeping that string tight the whole time. And it's not done with the horizontals. It's not even done with the verticals. You also have to go diagonal to get that 8-way tie. And this one is just a little askew. We're gonna just move it into place. Probably will hold better, much better once we get it to the other side. Bringing our line down to the center. Keep everything. Now I've got way more control. So here I'll be able to tie it in place in this direction once I get it latched on to this end. Now I can control the back and forth and the up and down pretty easily. I'll go back there and make sure this string gets tightened. I got a little loose between there and there, so I had to undo it a little bit to retighten it. And this is just so much easier than trying to like handle these while you're tying them, which is like something that I can't physically do. My hands are unable to do it. And ready to tie this down. We're almost done with 2/3. This next one will be 2/3 of the way down. I'm gonna need more tape. Hold on. Alright. I'm going to finish this one and then I'm going to go read your questions or comments that you might have. And if you guys are here and you're learning anything, if you could just tap the screen and like this content or put something in the comments section and share this with your friends. Any engagement really does a lot to help my business grow. And my business is teaching people how to do upholstery. I do this for free on Tuesdays here on TikTok. But I also teach in-person classes here in Ann Arbor, Michigan that you can attend in person or you can attend the very same class over Zoom. It's a hybrid class. So we have people who attend from their own home, either because they live too far away or because their project is too big for the classroom. And then we have people who are attending in person. It's a really great opportunity to learn upholstery with someone working with you, like live in person on your project as you need the help, so you can ask your questions in real time. Because when you're just watching tutorials, you don't get to like stop and say, hey, why did you do that? And no one is explaining exactly how to do it on your specific chair, which might be different than like what you're seeing in videos that are available to you. So it's a really cool opportunity to learn upholstery, whether you come visit and do a whole weekend with me or whether you're doing it from the comfort of your own home. We have a lot of fun and it's a really great community. You can even join my group for free on Facebook. It's called the Local Upholstery Club. If you're working on projects, you can post pictures and stuff in there and ask questions. Tag me and post and I'll answer them for you. There's a lot of pros in that group too who are giving their information freely because they want to see this industry succeed. So there's a lot of support in that group. No unsolicited advice, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to go to comments now. Figure out. Ooh. Hi. Welcome. Let me get this straight. Alright, I'm going to go just back a little bit to the last question. Thank you. You make it easy to follow and remember. I'm glad, Leslie. That's what I really try to do to make it look like completely approachable. I've only got about 9% left on my phone here, and I know we got an hour left, but I don't think that I'm going to make it through the phone. But this is exactly how you tie these springs. I'm doing that in this direction vertically. I'm going to go back through horizontally and tie it that way, and then I'm going to come back through diagonally and make those lines too. So I just don't have enough juice to do that here on TikTok today. So if you guys joined me today and you learned a little bit, I'm really glad. Thank you so much for joining me. It goes a long way to grow my business, and I know it goes a long way to help you guys learn something that could potentially grow your business too. That's what I'm teaching over in my classes, in my groups. I have a lot of opportunities for you. Stay tuned. If we lose TikTok, you're going to have to follow me on everywhere else. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I'm going to run a poll to see where I should do my lives on Tuesdays. I do Tutorial Tuesdays every Tuesday, so whoever wins out on that poll, that's where you'll be able to find me after January 19th if we lose access to TikTok. Other than that, you'll still be able to find me here on Tuesdays. So thanks for joining me today, you guys. We'll see you later.